Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Lina and I have a speed build for you today. It's a long one, so I hope you enjoy. Here in Starlight Shores is where I'm going to build an apartment complex that consists of 4 different apartments. But we're only going to play in one of them. 2 Sims from my Legacy Let's Play, Ricky and Skip, are moving in here. And it's going to be on this 60 by 60 lot. For this apartment building, I'm going to be using the hidden room marker and the public room marker from the buy debug menu. With these markers, I can add NPCs to the 3 apartments that I won't be playing in myself, but I'll still have full control over Ricky and Skip's apartment. To make sure I use these markers correctly, I followed a tutorial by NessiePeguin that I'll link down below. They explain everything very clearly, so if you want to make an apartment building like this, I definitely check their video out. The first thing I did while building this apartment complex was struggle with the floor plan. At first I wanted to make an L-shaped building, but that turned out to be way too big, so I demolished it and started over. I'm much more content with the second floor plan that I came up with. First I planned out the layout of one of the apartments. So what you're seeing here is the kitchen and living room in one room. Off the kitchen is a small balcony. There's 1 bathroom and there are 3 bedrooms because Ricky and Skip are going to share this apartment with one other roommate. More on him later. I also put in the doors and the essential furniture because I wanted to make sure that everything fit. And that was the case, so I could start on building the actual apartment complex. The floor plan of the apartment is 12 by 14 tiles, so I copied those measurements, and I want this building to consist of 4 identical apartments divided over 2 stories and connected to each other with a hallway. And I also want the hallway to have 2 doors, one that faces the road and the other that faces the back of the lot, because there's going to be a big park there. I'm placing the stairs in the middle of the hallway, but that's going to change later. I realized I actually forgot the hallway, so I added one on the back side of the lot, but that didn't look efficient, so I ended up moving the build back a couple of tiles so that the hallway could fit on the front of the lot. And yeah, as you can see, I'm adding 4 apartments that are all the same size. And I'm placing the stairs differently this time, but this is also not their final destination. After adding the doors of the apartments, I gave all of the apartments a small garden area in quotation marks, because it's completely tiled, but it doesn't really matter because they will have a big park in their backyard anyway. I copied the floor plan of the test apartment onto the actual apartment so that I could get rid of the test version. And then I wanted to add some spice to the build because now it just looks like a boring cube. So I decided to cut some corners off of the hallway. Those corners wouldn't be used anyway. And I added some 1 by 1 tile columns on the front of the building and later also to the back. I'm going to put some inaccessible balconies in between those columns to add more layers to the build. I wasn't even going to try and roof this build myself, so I decided to make a roof with floor tiles because those are recolorable and the standard flat roof isn't. After that, I started placing all of the windows. All apartments have the same windows, so this build is very symmetrical. But I feel like that scratches the brain of a lot of us simmers. But then I realized a huge flaw in my floor plan. The bathroom and one of the bedrooms had to be windowless because the hallway was in the way. So I did the only thing that I could think of without having to completely redo the floor plan, and that was to remove that part of the hallway. And this is where the stairs will finally remain for the rest of the speed build. I played around with the idea of making this area where the back door is a little less flat, but I didn't want that one bedroom to look out over a balcony or a roof, so I just added a 1 tile ledge. Here I'm choosing the wallpaper for the outside. First I went for this brick pattern, but then I saw this set that I I guess is used for the tombs in World Adventures. It has this dirt around the edges. And I thought this would be perfect because I haven't been clear about this at all, but this apartment is going to be very dilapidated. There's going to be a lot of dirt, cracks in the walls, overgrown plants, you name it. I had a lot of fun making this build look as grimy as possible, but I also wanted to add some extra detail with the wall pattern, so I added this, is it stucco kind of pattern to the build. It probably used to be a really nice place when there was still maintenance being done and everything. And I usually do this with bigger builds, use multiple wall patterns. It makes it look more detailed and intentional, more like I'm tricking you into thinking that I actually know what I'm doing. For the doors and windows, I use this wood that looks very scratched. It makes it seem like the wood is rotting. And with the smoothness patch by LazyDuchess, using the Create a Style tool like this is actually really nice. Sometimes there's a little bit of lag, but it's in no way as bad as what EA provided us with. I also placed the doors in the apartment itself, but I felt like the scratched wood pattern was a little too much for in here, so I picked a less damaged but still old looking pattern. I made the fences on the ledges look rusty, as well as the mailbox. Then I decided to look through by debug to find some fitting items. I'm using the build by search bar mod by LazyDuchess to filter through all of the objects. The work they put into this game is really what is carrying the speed build. But I found these trash cans with some trash underneath them, so I placed those next to the actual trash can. I have no idea if I've made that one unusable now, but we'll figure that out once we move Ricky and Skip in. By the way, I have no idea where you can find those trash cans. I believe they are in my game because I have Amberville, which is a custom world, installed. I found another version of the dirty wallpaper where there's also a layer of dirt on the bottom, so I added those wallpapers to the ground floor of the build. And I also made the stucco pattern a darker shade of cream because it looked too bright. After that, I added the light dirt terrain paint on the edge of the build. And I don't know about you, but to me this sound is the opposite of ASMR, so I'm going to mute it. I'm sorry if you like these sounds. With the terrain paint, I also added a path from the front door to the road. I used a combination of tiles, dirt and grass to make it look faded and old. I recolored the stairs to look like concrete and the railings to look like rusted metal. And this is optional, but I made the apartments that we're not going to see all black. I terrain painted the little gardens that are part of the ground floor apartments the same way as I did with the path I just did, so with tiles, dirt and grass. Then I looked through the by debug menu some more, after which the lot started acting weird. I probably did something wrong and I had to redo some stuff, so if you notice that some things are a little bit different, that's why. Just like the apartments we won't see, I also painted the insides of the columns black. It just looks more organized like that, I think. I added a parking lot with some parked cars from the debug menu to make it look like those are the cars of the other residents. And I painted the terrain with a mixture of gravel, dirt and grass. After that, I chose some plants that I wanted to use. I ended up not using all of them because I wanted the landscaping to be quite coherent, so I did not want to use a ton of different plants. And for the trees, I looked at what kind of trees are used in the surroundings. I believe most of them are base game oak trees, but I also wanted to use some showtime trees since I'm building in Starlight Shores. So I used those except for the palm trees. Once I had figured out what kind of plants I wanted to use, I could work on one of my favorite parts of any build, which is the landscaping. And it was a treat for this build in particular because I wanted to make it look as overgrown as possible. So I started with this area on the left side of the building. I made it look like the flowers had extended way beyond their designated space, so to speak. I also used these wall plants from around The Sims 3. The ones with the pink flowers are from a set called Sims 4 to 3 plants, and the 2 bear-looking ones are from the Sims 4 to 3 Decrepit Garden set. So yeah, it looks like the plants that were originally only on the ground are making their way up the building. I recolored the pink wall plants a bit so that they looked more like the ones on the ground, and I really like this object because it also works with the yellow and purple flowers that are in the game. You can basically make them any color you need them to be. Throughout the build, I also used these wall cracks by Around the Sims. They're from the Decrepitude set. How do you pronounce that?
Decrepitude.
Oh, and here, these protest signs in the hallway. I started thinking about what kind of other Sims live in this building. I don't know if you have these kinds of buildings in other countries, because when I did a quick Google search, I only found examples from this in the Netherlands. But my idea with this building is that it is an anti-squat apartment complex. So people live in buildings like this that are no longer used for their intended purpose to prevent other people from breaking in and I guess trashing the place. I actually know quite a few people who are currently living in anti-squat housing. For example, someone lived in a medical care facility and another in a home for the elderly. And I also know of people who lived in an old high school, so their apartments were old classrooms. It's a more affordable option than quote-unquote regular housing. But for this build, I think it just used to be an apartment building of which the owners maybe went bankrupt and they had to sell the building to the town, and instead of fixing it up, they're letting anti-squatters live here. So on the ground floor in the apartment left from the front door lives an activist. They've put their protest signs on the hallway. On the right side of the front door lives someone who wants to make it in the showbiz industry, maybe as a performer in the theater. And upstairs lives another kleptomaniac, because if you didn't know, Ricky, my sim, is a kleptomaniac. I wanted to make this side of the building really overgrown. The vines reach all the way onto the first floor and they're covering the windows. And unfortunately, you can't just free place these objects like you can in The Sims 4. So I tried to cover up that gap in between the 2 stories with more plants, but it didn't really work, but that's okay. Just like the trash cans, this shopping cart is also in my game because of Amberville, I think. I added some plants to the parking lot. And then I tried finding this lamppost that's on the other side of the road, but I couldn't find an exact match, so I just used a smaller one and made it green. I placed this sign with a tree on it next to the path. I can't say that word. Path? Because in my head this path? I'm self-conscious. This place where you can walk is a hiking trail, so maybe the sign says something like, "Hi, welcome on the Oak Tree Trail," or something like that. And I used a terrain paint that resembles that path to start working on the park behind the building. I wanted to add a small pond. Maybe it has dried up a bit. And from there I just connected the paths together. I made it look a little bit less wonky with the terrain paint eraser, but then I obviously got in with the dirt and grass terrain paint to make the path more faded. On the lookout here, I placed a broken bench from the Uglify Your Town set, again from Around the Sims. I really like this object. You can decide whether you want to have it scratched or if you want there to be graffiti on it. And then I just continued the terrain painting until it ended up looking like this. Then I added dark dirt on the bottom of the pond, as well as more oak trees and the Showtime trees. I just scattered those alongside the path and on the empty spaces. I also found this nasty trash can in the debug menu, and once all the trees were standing, I went in with more plants. I mainly used grass and those dead-looking shrubs. I decorated the pond with more plants. Later in the video, I'll also add a fresh water marker, I think that's what it's called, to the pond, as well as some fish. I think it's nice to have that as an extra detail. I added another broken bench. As you can see from this view, one of the pieces of wood on the bottom has cracked, and of course I also made it look vandalized. And there's another vandalized bench at the edge of the lot alongside the hiking trail. After adding in more grass, I placed these white flowers. If you have the world St. Clair Island in your game, you'll also get these flowers. I think they're really pretty. I also added this pile of burnt stuff to the park. Maybe there's not a lot of surveillance here, so it's easy to burn stuff, I guess. I'm kind of skipping through the rest of the landscaping, otherwise this video will be an hour long. And then here where the back door is, I added a dumpster and some terrain painted tiles. Then after some finishing touches with the terrain paint and some cracks in the walls, I also added a rusty dishwasher, a crate and an open book to the dumpster. I really hope my Sims won't actually use the dishwasher, but we'll see. If it ends up being annoying, I can always delete it later. I also added these plastic chairs. Maybe some of the residents like to sit here in the evening, and I wish I had some beer bottles that I could place next to them on the floor, but the closest thing I had was this wine bottle. Here you can see me decorate the outside area of the activist. I gave them a washing line because they're probably eco-friendly, as well as some compost bins, a hanging plant that has been converted from the Sims 4 Nifty Knitting pack, and this poster which I believe is from the high school years pack, but I chose this one with the fish. Maybe marine life is one of the causes that they advocate for. Then I decorated the balcony of the kleptomaniac. I gave them a park bench that they somehow managed to steal, as well as some traffic cones that might look familiar if you've seen my legacy. Then I looked for some stage props to put in front of the door of the aspiring star. Maybe they make their own theater productions or something. I ended up going for these city skyline props, but I turned them around because that makes it more clear that they are props and not just decoration. And then for their outdoor area, I just made it look a bit overgrown. I don't think they would sit here often. And after all of that, I'm finally starting on the interior of the build. I added carpet to the hallways. I imagine it to be in a pretty bad shape. It's probably covered in bald spots in the places where the Sims have walked a lot, and it probably has some mysterious stains. And I gave the walls this sad, faded green color. For the main apartment, I went for simple, fake wooden floors. There are white and bluish tiles in the bathroom and white and grey tiles in the kitchen. And I made sure to incorporate the wood of the door frames in the wood of the walls. I also matched the grey of the floor tiles in the kitchen to the tiles on the wall, but covering all 3 walls of the kitchen with these tiles looked a bit too busy, so I only did the back wall. Throughout the apartment I used the same wallpaper but in different colors. So in the shared room, the kitchen and living room, it's kind of a cream color. One 5x5 bedroom is dark green, the other is grey, and the 5x6 bedroom is black. This is going to be the bedroom of Ricky and Skip's roommate because of course they took the biggest room for themselves. And as you can see, I switched the colors of those 2 smaller bedrooms. Skip is going to sleep in the grey one and Ricky in the green one, since those are their favorite colors. The kitchen counters that I'm using are from the Farmhouse Kitchen set, originally by Sims 4 Luxury for The Sims 4, but converted by Martha Sims Book CC for The Sims 3. I like these because there is a regular version, but also a version where the paint is damaged. I thought it looked perfect for an apartment like this. This extractor fan is by Around the Sims and it's so cool, it works like a smoke detector. But a little heads up about these counters. They do glitch sometimes when you pick them up and move them, as you can see here, and they stay like that even if you Ctrl-Z them. I don't know how to fix them when they get like that, so I just bought some new counters, but I have read that if this happens in live mode, you can use NROS debug enabler to reset their textures, but I've also heard people say that counters should be installed as Sims 3 pack files instead of package files, but I have not done that, obviously. I guess we'll see how it goes when I start playing in this apartment. I also downloaded some clutter specifically for this kitchen. The dish towel with the drying plates on it are from Around the Sims Washing Up Clutter set. The dirty dishes and the pizza box are from their Slob's Life set, and these pans are from their cookware set. They are great because they have clean and dirty versions. I'm obviously going to use the dirty versions. So I placed a dirty frying pan on the stove. I imagined their roommate frying eggs in the middle of the night and not cleaning up after themselves. And I thought I was being pretty clever here because I used an OMSP to place the dirty dishes in the sink, which still keeps the sink completely functional, it just looks extra messy. I also added these canisters from Around the Sims to the counter, and I actually wanted to add a very simple coffee machine because I imagined the roommate to drink coffee so that they can pull all-nighters, but there are only these fancy coffee machines in the game, and those just won't do. I also tried putting in a microwave, but I didn't like how it looked, so I'm just going to pretend that the oven also has a microwave in it. I added some more kitchen essentials, a bin, a towel that I matched with the towel on the counter, some paper towels and a big box of instant ramen on the fridge. I placed these wall lights under the cabinets. I want the light in this apartment to be the opposite of cozy. The light is very white and harsh. The table and chairs for the dining area are very scratched and old looking. And here's some more information about the roommate. It's a man named Thomas. He is around the same age as Ricky and Skip, probably a bit older, and he is a freelance writer. His biggest passion is music, so he mostly writes articles about music and submits those to all kinds of magazines. Magazines? He likes decorating with posters of artists and bands that he plucked from the streets. And on the table are a stack of music-themed magazines and some pens, because I thought maybe he gets copies of the magazines that publish his work and he annotates them. And if you look at the living room, you can clearly see where the priorities lie, because the seating looks gross and the TV is supported by crates, but there is a console so they can play video games if they want. Oh, and the coffee table consists of 2 wool boxes pushed together. I also came across this flag, which looks really cool on the activists' balcony. I love that everyone who goes for a hike can see the flag. And I added these cans. Maybe there's some herbs in there, if you get my drift. And of course, safety first. So I added some exit signs to all of the exits, as well as some more clutter. And then I switched these posters around because I thought the colors looked more aesthetic when they were switched. And then we're on to the bathroom. I gave them a very manly shower curtain with cars on them. I have Nona Mena Super Hamper, which attracts the laundry of the entire lot, so you don't have to constantly collect all of the laundry manually. And now I actually like my Sims to do their laundry, but I don't know how this is going to go on this particular lot, since there's technically also NPCs living here. I'm not planning on doing laundry for the entire building, so again, we'll see how this works in-game once we start playing. To make the bathroom a little less put together, I added this sock on the floor from the Slob's Life set that I mentioned earlier. I also added some cracks in the walls and a mirror that has a lot of sticker remnants on there. And I wanted to add a vent, so for every apartment I replaced the middle bathroom window with a vent. To clutter it up some more, I added some laundry detergent on the washing machine and a tube of toothpaste that has some toothpaste coming out. This is also from Around the Sims and it's from their dental care set. At first I wanted to add a towel rack, but that looked too fancy. I imagined that all of them keep their towels in their own rooms, so they can get them from there if they need them. Here I'm starting on Skip's bedroom. As I mentioned before, his favorite color is grey. And I really like doing this. It's using cardboard boxes as a nightstand, especially for Sims who have just moved in somewhere. The boxes I'm using are from around the Sims moving out, moving in set. I swear their CC is what really makes my builds come alive. I debated on whether to put some sports equipment in Skip's room, because I believe he wants to max out his athletic skill for his lifetime wish, but him having something that expensive in his room would be pretty unrealistic, so I decided to just fill the space up with more boxes, and maybe we can add more furniture later. Oh, and this is really fun. I gave Skip and Ricky both the same cactus, because I imagine that Peggy May and Susie gave those to them as a goodbye gift. And it's a cactus because those don't need a lot of water, so they won't die as easily. Very considerate. I also gave Skip a desk, but I don't really see him as a desk in his room kind of guy, so I got rid of that later. If you've watched The Legacy, you know that Ricky bought some furniture at a yard sale before he moved. It took me ages to find a layout that I was content with, so I shuffled the furniture around a lot. I really wanted to place the bed against the wall, and I'm unsure, but I think that in The Sims 4, 2 Sims can sleep in a double bed even if it's placed against the wall. Correct me if I'm wrong. But in The Sims 3, only 1 Sim can sleep in it. So I went back and forth a lot because I like how the bed against the wall looks, but I don't like how Ricky can't woohoo or sleep with another Sim when it's placed like that. But then I thought, if he wants to woohoo, he can just do it somewhere else. Piss your roommates off and do it in the shower, I don't care. So this is the layout that I eventually went for. Finding curtains for this window was actually a nightmare, but he really needs curtains because he looks directly into another apartment, so I chose these really dated looking ones and justified it by imagining that these are second-hand. I also made it so that the bedding looked like it was sewn by Ricky's mom, and I want Ricky to pursue a career as a private investigator, so he is going to need a desk when he eventually gets a computer, and I put the cactus that he got on it for now. I also gave him a bookshelf. The only reason for that is that I needed to fill up that space. And since Ricky has read 1 whole book in his life, I thought, why not give him a bookshelf? Oh, and this rug and the poster of the shark were actually in his bedroom at his parents' house, so he brought those with him to decorate his room a bit. And now it's time for the home stretch, the last room, Thomas's bedroom. I gave him this bed that doesn't have a bed frame, just a few mattresses stacked on top of each other. It's from around the Sims' squat bedroom set. And since he is a writer and probably on his computer a lot, I gave him an elaborate desk setup. And here I'm placing down some planters. You might wonder, why does a man who lives with his blinds closed need planters? Thomas is actually quite the gardener. He grows his own lettuce so that he can sell it in the park at night. And I used the same lights that I used in the kitchen, but I made them fuchsia colored so that they resemble growing lights. Of course, I also added a lot more music related items here, such as more magazines and a stereo. And for Thomas, instead of a cardboard box, his nightstand is actually a pile of magazines. And I added some more mess because this man does not know what cleaning is. And I figured if music is his passion, maybe he has some instruments as well. So I gave him a keyboard, and later I'm also adding a guitar. Oh my god, this is such a fun part. Right here I'm making a little altar on his dresser. So I'm adding a mermaid statue and some candles. And you may think, who does Thomas worship then? The answer is, Thomas is a super fan of a pop star called Space Angel. And maybe her previous concept was Mermaid Angel or something. They don't have an alien statue, so it had to be a mermaid. But anyway, I actually made a Space Angel sim that's going to live in Starlight Shores. So you already know that Thomas might be showing some stalkerish behavior, which I obviously don't condone. It's extremely creepy and disturbing. But I even did an entire photo shoot with Space Angel so that I could make custom paintings and hang them in Thomas's room. The concept of her current album is space and aliens. Her album title is Queen of Space. I'll show you the album cover and promo photos a little bit better. As you can see, her album cover slays. I'm so proud of it. For the text, I used a custom font by Ink and Chaos called Imager Simlish. I'll link it down below, it's on Mod the Sims. On this photo, it looks like she's getting abducted by aliens. And it's pretty clear that Space Angel likes to engage in fan service because she often promotes her music by being sexy. And I think she pulls it off and she looks great. So yeah, here I'm just adding some finishing touches. I use the debug menu to place some spawners. So I'm adding roaches close to the trash cans and moths close to the ponds. And as I mentioned before, some freshwater fish in the pond. And also ladybugs on the parking lot. And this footage is actually muted because I was listening to NessiePeguin explaining how to add the public room and hidden room markers. So I first placed the hidden room markers in the blacked out apartments and then the public room markers in both of the hallways. And then I clicked on the doors of the blacked out apartments to enable NPCs living in those apartments. And yeah, now it's time for the overview.
Welcome to the Oak Tree Apartments, located under the Starlight Shores sign and next to the popular Oak Tree Trail. Let yourself be amazed by our unique landscaping. Who knows what kinds of fascinating critters have made their home in our luscious flower beds? Before we show you the inside of the apartments, allow us to take you on a walk around the building. Fancy a hike through the mountains and alongside the city's ocean side? Just step out the door and you're ready to go. Or take a seat with your morning coffee and a good book in the park behind the apartments. This park is the perfect place to enjoy a picnic with your friends, either on the soft grass or one of the comfortable benches. The incredible view of the sea definitely caused these apartments to be in high demand among those who know what relaxation is. The fish will agree with us that this is a great place to live, so let's not waste any more time and let us show you the apartment of the gentleman that is looking for 2 roommates. The apartment has an open plan layout with a beautifully painted farmhouse kitchen and a spacious living room that looks out over the entire city. There is a large dining room that can be expanded even more with additional seating, so don't hesitate to invite your friends over for dinner. If you decide to make the gray bedroom your home, do not worry about the abandoned warehouse on the other side of the street. We allow our trees to expand as much as they need, so their rich shape will be your main view. What the green bedroom lacks in natural daylight, it makes up for with its cozy atmosphere. You'll never feel lonely in here. Just look out your window and wave at your neighbor. We're sure they'll appreciate that very much. Forget spending money on expensive laundromats. This bathroom comes with its own washer and dryer, so you'll be able to enjoy the luxury of being completely self-sufficient. If you decide that you want this apartment to be yours, you'll get a roommate with a passion for music, and you'll probably gain a friend for life. He is very easy to live with, since he only leaves his room to eat or sell his own organic produce to members of the local community. To top all of this off, this apartment comes with a balcony, a real luxury in the city. Oh, how good it feels to breathe in that sea breeze whenever you want.
I'm looking forward to everything that the city has to offer for Ricky and Skip, and I hope you are too. Thank you so much for watching. Bye everybody.